Welcome back to another high-level match of StarCraft 2. Now what I've got for you today is a very exciting match of Terran versus Zerg from a recent Kung Fu Cup. It's a best-of-3 series where in game number 1 we find ourselves on the map Gresven. Now the reason why I'm excited is because of the man right here in the top left-hand corner. I really haven't seen a lot of his games lately. Playing with the Red Terran SCVs, we have the man who won IEM Katowice at the beginning of the year, and therefore he's the world champion of StarCraft 2. We're looking inside of the main base of Oliveira. Now Oliveira, I mean, he's still very good, of course. He's still one of the very best players in the world, but he doesn't play in a whole lot of the online tournaments. Every once in a while, he decides to sign up, but not nearly as often as some of the guys that I do frequently cover on my channel. Now, the reason why we haven't really seen that much of Oliveira over the last few months, at the very least I haven't really seen that many of his games, is because he didn't make it out to the ESL Masters event. This took place a little bit ago. He did manage to qualify from China, however he didn't get his visa in time. So apparently he couldn't go because, you know, visa issues, which really sucks. So it's gonna be a little bit difficult for me to actually judge exactly where he's at, but I'm excited to find out. His opponent, though, in the opposite corner, a man I'm very familiar with, playing with the blue Zerg drones from South Korea. He's one of the very best Zergs in the world, and he goes by the name of Solar. Alrighty, so according to Aligilek, Solar currently the number 10 in the world overall, and Oliveira currently the number 12 in the world overall. So certainly not a weak player whatsoever. Alrighty, so let's find out together. Now, it is going to be Gresven in game number 1. I feel like I've been casting this map a lot over the last couple weeks in particular. We've seen a lot of long, drawn-out macro games on this map in particular, so we'll see exactly what ends up going down here. I mean, there are certainly builds that end the game early, but Solar doesn't seem to be a particularly big fan of going for like a big roach push or something along those lines. Now, one thing to note, I suppose, is that Oliveira did not opt to go for the double barracks here at the front. He does practice quite a bit on the Korean server, and that seems to be what all of the Korean Terrans are currently doing against Zerg. He must be well familiar with what the Koreans are playing, he must be studying their replays, but apparently he's decided, at least in this game, to not go for that very Bjorn-esque opener. At the very least, in my mind, it's a Bjorn-esque opener where you rush out those 3 Reapers early on. The problem is, of course, that it makes you pretty predictable, because well, we've already seen players, like for example Dark recently, figure out really quite well how to counter it, although the approach is still a little bit interesting to me. He decided to go like 43 drones and then mass Zergling. If you can get the Creep Trooper, that'd be huge. Nice grenade there, but will he lose? He will lose the Reaper. If this would be Dark playing, he would instantly cancel link speed, put drones back in gas, and put down a Roach Warren. But this is Solar. Solar will usually, yeah, just opt to play that macro game here instead. Getting that very first Reaper kill, though, is always a nice mental boost. Anyways, the problem with that double, yeah, or that triple Reaper start, the double barracks at the front, is that it always leads to the same game, right? Like, with a 1-1-1 opener, like the one we're seeing right over here with the 3rd command center, technically speaking, this could still be battle cruisers. This can be anything from a medevac drop to battle cruisers, right? And it leaves Zerg in, yeah, the dark. You don't really know exactly what you're playing against. But with that triple Reaper start, you have the 2 barracks at the front. It's always gonna be a marine-based follow-up, and maybe there's gonna be multiple barracks on the back of it, but oftentimes there's just gonna be a 3rd CC, and it's just, yeah, the first 7 or so minutes of a game become very predictable. Now that was a little bit slower right there by Solar. I think he accidentally shift rallied there. He could have definitely, yeah, just morphed it into a Spore Crawler a little bit ahead of time. This, however, is still a very normal opener here, though, from Oliveira. So even though he technically has all of the tools at his disposal to do whatever he likes, apparently what he likes is triple CC into Hellion Banshee. This is something we've seen many times before, and Solar is probably gonna find out about it too. Yeah, he would like to see, yeah, okay. He would like to see the green light right over there in that tech lab, and he does. It could technically be Blue Flame Hellions or something along those lines, but I don't think that that is something that Solar is really going to consider at this point. He did see the tech lab, he did see the green light, but he didn't see the starport. Generally though, if it's gonna be some cheeky Blue Flame Hellion opener, that 2nd factory is gonna be hidden somewhere closer to that main mineral line just to try and hide it, right? Just to try and make it difficult for the opponent to scout. Plus, it's not really a build order that's played all too often in the current meta. Alrighty, so Spore Crawlers have come up here. A Lair is starting up as well at a very normal timing. We'll probably see the Baneling Nest here very soon, and then eventually the double upgrades as well. Could be a Roach Warren still for Solar, although I haven't really seen him play that style all too often. That seems to be what a lot of the European Zergs like to do, what, for example, Dark likes to do as well. Yeah, so no Roach Warren in this particular case. It's just going to be straight Ling Bane. And this is something that Solar has got a ton of experience with. Solar's mid game actually has been incredibly impressive as of late. I mean, he's always been very good, but I think his mid to late game is some of the very best in the world. Like, he doesn't really, so I say late game, he doesn't really play late game that much. Like, oftentimes we'll see him, actually, wait for just a second, because maybe these Hellions can get something done. Okay, don't stack him up too much. Good crisis management. Yeah, only 2 drones end up falling. Oftentimes, he will transition to the late game, and then he'll make like 3 lurkers, and he's like, okay, great, my opponent is now making ghosts. I guess I'm going back to Hydraling Bane. He is very much so a mass Hydraling Bane type of guy. Maybe not quite to the extent of Elaser, who sits around on like Lair Tech for ages and just runs around with Hydraling Bane the entire game long. Okay, nice cancel over here on that 4th, though. That is quite painful here for the Zerg. Alright, anyway, so yeah, he's definitely a little bit more flexible with that late game army, and he definitely can play the spellcaster meta too, but... Okay, nice transfusion. Can we get another one? Yep, we can. Another 2 even, and I think that these Banshees, yep, they're gonna be pushed back. Hellions, in the meantime, have roasted a few drones here and there, but 5 workers killed, really nothing to write home about, nothing all too exciting. Second factory here, pretty early, in the main base right here of Oliveira. That's interesting. That's actually not too early. Normally we do see it out at the front here, but he apparently has decided, no, I'm gonna go ahead and build it inside of my main base. It's gonna be that good old bio army supported with a bunch of Widow Mines. Hydralisk Den has already come up. Hydras are amazing against Widow Mines, at least usually, mainly because of the fact that they can outrange Widow Mines. So Widow Mines in small numbers, assuming the Hydras have their ranged upgrade, the Groove Spines research, they will be able to outrange it. And yeah, most players actually do go for that siege tank based attack right here on Grisfin, where we see the Terrans putting up their siege tanks against this wall and then they push back and forth. Interestingly enough, Oliveira has decided to go for the Widow Mine approach instead, so maybe he's respecting Solar enough here to not fall for such a trick. He's going for a little attack here before Bailing Speed is done. Getting that creep to her, okay, would be nice. He's not going to be able to get it. He will be able to, oh my god, get some massive detonations. And I think maybe Solar was also just assuming that this was gonna be a siege tank based opener every single time. Well, he will not be clumping up his units ever again like that in this game, because that was a lot of units going down. Now, will Oliveira be taking this center base, or is he going to go for the one over here on the left? I've talked about that in previous casts over the last few weeks. Generally, I think, yeah, this location over here is much better, but for some reason, some of the very best Terrans in the world have been taking the base off to the site once again, just like they used to back when the map was first introduced. And then I feel like everybody figured out that this base is actually superior, but then they stopped doing it recently, and I can't quite figure out as to why that is. Anyways, here we go. The Hellbats are still around, of course. The Hellions, they turned themselves into Hellbats. Now with the Armory done. Armory was produced to get +2/+2 started, but yeah, may as well use these units when you have them still around. Nice little bit of micro, of course, here coming out of our Chinese Terran. Alright, he's retargeting as well with the Widow Mines, trying to keep them around for as long as possible, trying to just get as much value as he can. Yeah, even a transfusion here on the Overseer. Very high level play here as well, of course, by Solar, right? It's very easy to get overwhelmed under all of this pressure, but the top level Zergs, generally speaking, have got a lot of practice pushing back these armies, and honestly, Solar in particular. Solar is very much so the type of guy who will sit back the entire game long and then eventually overwhelm you. He doesn't really do anything fancy. There's very few Ling Bane run-bys, there's very few big counter-attacks. He just simply sits here and he takes a beating, and then at some point he punches you back. But when his punch eventually comes, it is one hell of a punch, man. He's like one of those anime characters who's like, you know, he's like Pac-Man, you know, he's like spinning his fist around, and at some point it will fly in the direction of the Terran, and it's gonna be up to Oliveira to defend it. Now, here's that lurker den I was talking about. I'm curious to see if he's gonna commit to a lot of lurkers. Widow Mine drop. Okay, 15 drones. Well, there you go. That was exactly what Oliveira was looking for. At this point, obviously, those drones can be replaced really quite easily, but that is still better than, of course, no damage. Alright, so I'm curious to see if he's gonna go a heavy lurker. I mean, the Ghost Academy is already coming up. 4th Command Center is done. Planetary Fortress in the middle. We've got double Command Center now on the back of this too. Oliveira does see that we've got that lurker den already done. So So, okay, he squeezes the units in between all of those structures. At the same time, there's a fight over here at the front. Drop over at the 4th base of the Zerg as well, trying to just be annoying. Maybe this is actually the 5th base. Yeah, I think it was. Oh my god, he's everywhere. Suddenly, he's killing a load of stuff, actually. Yeah. Suddenly stepping it up in the actions per minute. You love to see it. Very nicely done. +2/+2 is going to finish up for Solar, though, and that's going to make defending a whole lot easier. Vipers are coming up as well. Those are going to be really nice. I'm really curious to see, though, if he's going to make, like, 3 lurkers, and then he sees 1 ghost, and he's like, okay, I guess I'm now unable to make lurkers. I would not be surprised whatsoever. He hasn't actually fired up the upgrades yet, which is kind of interesting. Maybe he's going to be prioritizing the Hydraling Bane upgrades instead, so Adrenal Glands is coming up. Yeah, Vipers make a lot of sense, but we'll see if he decides to commit to heavy lurkers. Alright, so there's the ghost coming up. Expansion on the left coming up as well. We'll probably see this base here in the bottom taken in just a little bit as well. These Widowmine plays are absolutely beautiful, though. Yeah, I feel like this game started off with like 5 worker losses, but now we're at 40, which is really significant. Funny how he's playing Widowmines on this map as well. I feel like everybody's playing siege tanks here. Maybe that's the reason why, though. Okay, looks like Oliveira still got it. The problem is that this sort of aggression is nice, but it doesn't necessarily win you games. You know, like the aggression alone is not gonna be quite enough. Unless you can get a tempo advantage and then push back the Zerg. I mean, these pushes are amazing, though. Yeah, he's inviting the Zerg off creep, so all of those Widow Mines there are gonna be amazing, of course, although the majority of them were a little bit too far forward. +3 attacks is gonna finish up here pretty soon for our Terran player as well, and that's gonna make them a whole lot more powerful. Finally, we have Solar going in for really the first attack, but he's gonna, yeah, find a bunch of planetary fortresses. So, I'm not gonna achieve too much. Drop over here in the top section of the map as well. I love the multitasking, man. Lot of aggression. Yeah, these are the type of games, right, where at some point somebody usually wins because the opponent messes up. But when neither player really messes up, and nobody gets a significant advantage, these games can get really crazy. And I feel like Solar and Oliveira are very evenly matched so far. Slight advantage here I would say for Oliveira, but he needs to start macroing once again. He's got a lot of money in the bank and a lot of supply that he can spend it on. Trying to EMP down those Vipers as well. The Vipers are still useful, of course. Here's another Widowmine drop. There you go. I mean, he's now killed 50 workers. Yeah, the first Widowmine drop over here on the right side, that one was, you know, significant, but not the end of the world. Nidus Worm over here as well. I do like seeing the Nidus Worm here, actually, just to try and block that base for our Terran. One finisher move, though. That is always an option here for Mr. Solar, who is starting to add on lurkers right now, is lurkers in the main base. Nidus Worm in the main base, walk the lurkers somewhere over here, burrow them. It's an absolute disaster for the Terran to try and actually deal with it. Something that Solar has talked about in the past. He mentioned this at Home Story Cup, that he's a big fan of it. He's like, yeah, even when I'm behind, you know, and I don't really feel too good about the game, it is always a build that I have in the back of my pocket. Like, if I know that my opponent may very well be vulnerable in the main base, and I feel like this might be one of those situations. Okay, you know what? A couple units get misrallied as well. Widowmine over there, not getting much done. This Widowmine, though, is gonna explode, but that detonation was not as big as it could have been. Good snipe right there, though, by Oliveira on the Viper. Okay. Yeah, there are a few missile turrets, but no sensor tower in the main base. A lot of Terrans have actually been moving up the sensor tower that's placed over here to right over here, so they also see an Overseer coming in. Because right now there is technically a little bit of a vulnerability there. So 6 lurkers in total. Nidus Worm over here at the front as well. Another medevac drop heading all the way up north. Planetary Fortress, well, Zerglings normally aren't a problem, but then there's nothing to defend this. Yeah, other than the planetary. It's gonna be pretty easy. Now, this base will be finished up eventually. We're gonna go ahead and pop down a Nidus Worm here as well. This is actually an excellent position for lurkers to go around and usually burrow right over there in the back. Terrando moving very aggressively. Notice here that Oliveira is not really making a transition towards like Ghost Mech or Mass Liberator or anything along those lines. Okay, mostly just a... Ooh, well, this is gonna be, yeah, I was gonna say, that's gonna be a freebie right here. Nice little bit of body blocking, let's go, man. I feel like Oliveira got so good at the game, seemingly out of nowhere. Am I mistaken? Like, I knew he was good for a long time, but then he suddenly won IEM Katowice, and he, in my mind, almost like overnight, became a world-class Terran. Like, I know he was always very good, but like, not to the point where I considered that he could become a world champion of StarCraft 2. He got so good so fast. Like, little moves like that, I mean, yeah, as a viewer, they're obvious. Of course you want to buddy pluck the lurkers, but these guys are managing about 17 different things at once. It is very easy to, well, not execute on those ideas, right? Like, you can maybe think about them in hindsight, but to execute on them in the moment, you need a... You need a portion of your brain to not be thinking about all of the other things. Like, a lot of the game needs to be almost automated, right? You have to not have to think about actual production and splitting and all that to be able to have the mental capabilities there to do everything at the same time and then come up with some other stuff too. Anyways, Hatchery over here does get killed. The Marines, though, ended up going down. Lurkers are once again going to try and harass over here, but there's now also Lings and Banes in the worm. Fair enough. Zergling run by here up north. Push over here down south as well. We've had an additional 15 drones. We're all the way up to 61, or 68 rather, plus 1. Nice. Ooh, here we go. Fusion core. Okay, so we do have a transition coming up here for Oliveira, but it's not the one we normally see from Terrans in this matchup right now. It's something we have seen Terrans experiment with in the past. I believe that this is going to be for the Liberator ranged upgrade. I don't think it's going to be... Well, it could be for battle cruisers, but I honestly doubt it. I think it's going to be Mass Liberator. This Infestor over here, by the way, can change this game. One pop-up, one fungal. Is he going to take the bait? No, he will not be springing a trap. Hatchery over here almost ends up going down. The harassment actually is kind of insane. Yeah. I'm not sure how to feel about Mass Liberator, to be honest. Like, I think Mass Liberator is good, but it's not quite as rigid as like some of those other Terran unit compositions that we usually see. That being said though, this current unit comp here for Solar is not great against it. Like, he does have one, yeah, he's got one Viper and one Infestor. I mean, it's a good combo, I suppose, but you're not going to be able to abduct like 18 Liberators, right? Assuming they all come out and hit the battlefield. Ghost over here though, not the biggest fan of this. He does end up killing the base though, and because of Cloak, the units are mostly unharmed. Okay. I think if we're gonna be playing this style, we also need to get the air attacks for the Liberators, right? Because he's basically trying to just whip out a whole bunch of Liberators as the opponent is least expecting it. Now, this is the move I was talking about. Lurkers in the main base, this needs to be addressed. Boys, turn around, try to get some value over here. Maybe it's just a distraction Lurker, though, because there's actually not currently anything inside of it. Yeah, he's apparently respecting his opponent enough to make the assumption that he's just gonna clean it up, so he didn't bother anything... or he didn't bother putting anything in there. It was mostly just a distraction to try and get those units to back off into the main base, and then he could snipe a bunch of the expansions here of our Terran player. Another Nidus Worm in the main base, this one also empty, so he's definitely not planning on getting much done. 88, 90 workers right now here for Solar. So despite the 75 workers killed, actually 100 workers killed in total in this game, 75 and 25, that's kind of fun. Anyways, I like round numbers, okay? Triple digits, round numbers, looks pretty. Despite all of that though, despite all the worker killing, Solar still has a tremendous economy. And that's what I'm saying, like this harassment heavy style from Oliveira is good, but it doesn't ordinarily win you the game if Zerg is on point. Now, a lot of Zerg players, they will mess up at some point and they will not find an opportunity to re-drone, but Solar clearly good enough. Now suddenly though, all of those units show up, all of those Liberators, right? So we have 8 of them in total. We could definitely see more, but Oliveira is currently maxed out, so he literally cannot produce any more right now. Oh, are we gonna collapse on top of this? It's a literal minefield though. There are so many Widow Mines burrowed around this place, yeah. Parasitic Bomb over there is nice and all, but I do think that that fight was much better for Oliveira. Hatchery here up north, trying to get some value in as well, but I think that that command center is going to land. These bases can get killed very quickly though. I mean, luckily of course for the Zerg, Terran is unable to actually hit structures with that liberation zone. That is something I believe you can do in co-op, but it would be completely broken in the multiplayer version of StarCraft 2. If Liberators could also hit structures, but still quite a few drones end up going down. SCVs over here get killed as well. Nidus Worm here in the bottom left-hand corner, but that base is not really mining anyways. Solar currently putting most of his attention right here on trying to kill this, this push over here, straight up to the creep. And because this fight is taking place on creep, it's a whole lot better for Solar all of a sudden. Yeah, I think he's gonna have to get out. Queens now pushed to the front. They're gonna have a hard time reaching those Liberators. EMP on the Queen so they can no longer transfuse one another. We have a big Hydra transition now coming up, but a lot of units. Yeah, these Liberators are very cost efficient. A lot of units are required to snipe those units out of the sky. And while they will get killed eventually, it's expensive for the Zerg. Okay. Once again, we're gonna start remaxing here. Oliveira currently behind in the supply count, but he does have a little bit more money in the bank. So yeah, getting those expensive units out on the battlefield would be really nice. Now, who's currently mining more? So 77 workers still remain, and over the last 10 minutes, Solar has been taking a small advantage. It's not significant, especially when you take into account that Terran will be trading a lot more efficiently here than the Zerg, but I do believe that the odds are going in favor right here of Solar. Army-wise though, Oliveira is still leading the charge, and that is really nice for him. But he needs to get rid of this base. Like, this base needs to go. This is like the main lifeline right here of Zerg. It's very critical that Terran does not allow this base for much longer, but this is of course where those lurkers are once again amazing. Liberators up in the air trying to get some value in. We have a Spore Crawler even moving forward here too. Needs to be careful though. Stimming into lurkers like that is very dangerous. This expansion over here gets denied once again. Oliveira's lifeline, by the way, is also up north. I wouldn't mind seeing him try to maybe secure this base a little bit more aggressively, because I mean, these minerals are nice over here, but there's a good chance that they will get destroyed before too long. Either by the Terran mining them out or by the Zerg moving on in that direction. He does hold on, by the way, and Solar, even though he doesn't really know exactly where that Terran army is located, he decides to send basically all of his army down south. The same has happened right here for Oliveira. Okay, fungal. Big fungal. Massive fungal. Really lovely work. Yep, okay, well that EMP did land very rapidly, but that was an expensive group of units right there to lose. It may very well allow Solar to push into a better position. Still though, Oliveira making himself look a lot more menacing than his army actually is. Yeah, now Solar realizes it and he decides to move forward. There are a few of those Widow Mines being annoying, but they get roasted pretty quick. Here's once again though, all of those Liberators up in the air. Together with a planetary fortress that's going to be very difficult to push into. The choke point here is just favoring. Please repair. Yeah, please repair for a little bit. Anyways, that's going to be favoring the Terran quite a bit. Just a position. Getting the Infestors here would be fantastic. Nice. Yeah, getting rid of those units here is real good. Terran in the meantime harassing up north once again. We've now had, well, nearly 100 drones going down, and if it's up to this Liberator, he will finish the job, and he will bring it up to triple digits here in favor of Terran. Alright, Zerglings on a little vacation here, running around trying to figure out whatever they can kill, but there's not that much. Not a lot of loose ends right here in this Terran army. Liberator over here down south as well. I think Oliveira had ample opportunity in this game to transition towards that Ghost Mech army. Now, I know it's not really his style, but I think it probably would have been a little bit more rigid, right? Like, he's harassing like an absolute champ, and he's certainly not in a bad spot here, but it does make the game a lot more scary here for the Terran player. Now, once again, Solar collapsing on top of this to the best of his abilities. Parasitic bombs over here could be very dangerous. Okay, he does split them away, but into the Hydralisks. And that turned out to not be the greatest of choices here. Now suddenly, I mean, this base is essentially his main lifeline. There's still some income, of course, up north as well. Actually, more than just a sum, but yeah, it's starting to look a little dire here for Oliveira. G is cold, just a single G. But it's Solar who obtains the victory here in a very well-played game number 1. Alright, next up we find ourselves on the map Babylon. Now, I skipped the first 90 seconds of this game just because everything was normal. As to be expected, honestly, between these two. They don't really play the spiciest styles of StarCraft, but they're very good at playing a, well, normal game. It's going to be a hatchery first right here from Solar into a gas geyser as well as a spawning pool, whereas, well, on the side of the Terran, we've got ourselves a Reaper opener followed with a Marine. And of course, a command center here on the low ground. SCV Scout leading the charge here just to make sure that this Reaper can actually go across the map every once in a while. I mean, honestly, you could probably skip it against Solar because he'll go for a hatchery almost every single time as his very first structure. But every once in a while, you're playing against a pool first opener and then the Reaper really needs to stay at home. So that SCV just went across the map to see the timing of the hatchery. And by seeing the timing of the hatchery, he knew that it was going to be a hatch first. So links are going to be used defensively here for the time being. Solar did sneak out a drone as well towards the right side of the map. Back in the day, Terrans used to try and hunt down that drone, and they sometimes still do, just to try and be annoying, but most Terrans really don't want to play against 2-base Zerg anyways, so they kind of prefer it when Zerg does take a 3rd base, even though it's kind of nice to harass them. Well, when you actually kill the drone that was supposed to be the 3rd, suddenly you may just be playing against 2-base Zerg, and that's where suddenly Zerg has about 17 different options available as far as the tech goes, and I think most Terrans, they prefer being the ones in charge of the matchup. Once again, a triple CC start right here for the Terran. We'll probably see a tech lab here once again, so it's going to be Hellions followed up with a Banshee. Second gas right now. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be, but I wouldn't be surprised. Reaper over here at the front truss, trying to get some value in, but against 3 queens, I mean, you can throw beautiful grenades just like that one, but it's not really going to achieve that much. The queens are just going to regen some health, and it'll bring them back up to full. So there's the tech lab, a little bit late actually, but he's going to be flying on and over. And I think he can probably make up for that 1 second. Second tech lab as well, so he'll probably be transitioning towards a bio-based army. Alrighty, so 3rd CC is done, Banshee's coming up. Are we gonna go Cloak? Probably not. Although it could certainly be the late Cloak as well. That is something we actually see being quite helpful sometimes. I mean, Zergs will usually scout right around this time. So if Solar wanted to go for an OV scout, this would be the moment. There's already a Marine though waiting on the perimeter. So there are some very small deviations, right? So no Cloak this time around. There's no double Marine waiting here on the perimeter of the main base either. So even though this is a slightly different opener though for Oliveira, it doesn't really matter that much for the Zerg. It's not like Zerg is going to adjust. It's still going to be, well, Hellions and Banshees, and that's really the only thing he needs to figure out. Stimpacker now on the back of it as well, so... Yep, a medevac transition. And now apparently Solar shows up. It's actually a little bit late, honestly. I'm not a huge fan of that. He does see the starport flying around. Yeah, I guess at this point he knows that it's not going to be Cloak, so he doesn't really need to get the Spore Crawlers going. Normally, if you want to go Spore Crawlers, though, against Cloak, you need to plant them down, well, really right about right now, at absolute latest. Especially against a triple CC start. Against a straight 1-1-1, the Banshee upgrade would be done already. And the Spores would be a little bit late, but I guess it's not the end of the world. Solar, though, making a bit of a deviation here himself. Okay, so he's decided to go double upgrades here, rather than a lair first. So maybe that's actually why he decides to scout. Maybe the timing right there of his Overlord scout, even though it did seem a little late to me. Maybe it's just for him to know whether or not he can go for a lair first and then rush out the Overseer as well as the Bailing Speed, or if he can prioritize the Evo Chamber upgrades. So this is of course a little bit greedier because Zerg at this point does not have any late or mid-game units coming up, right? Like there's very little here as far as tech goes. This could have almost been a disaster, but it's gonna be okay. Zergling's here on the other side of the map. And this is a nice little move here from Solar. Yep, he's recognized that all the Hellions are on the other side. I mean, not that this is going to deal that much damage, but he sees that he's gonna be able to, well, honestly, I don't think he killed really anything. Yeah, he killed a couple Marines, but that was it. But he does see the hey, there you go. This guy, look at how happy he is. Runs away immediately after killing one SCV. Yippee, woo! Look at me, Queen. I did it. Good job. Good job, Lenny. Lenny DeLing, very proud. Writing his memoir right now. Anyways, he did see the siege tank transition, which is nice. Not, again, that it changes the Zerg in any way. He does need to knock down these rocks, by the way, yeah. Especially when you're not gonna have Bailing Speed done. By the time that, okay, the Terran marches across, there's a moment where siege tanks up against this wall are very, very scary, but we'll have to see if that's what Oliveira decides to go for. So Bailings are coming up, now Lair is done, so Solar is making that transition towards the Bailing Speed upgrade. 1-1 upgrades together with the combat shields are going to finish up right around the same time. So we'll probably see Oliveira at the very least making a move at that point. But that's also going to be just ever so slightly before the Baneling speed is done. And of course, this time around, it's not just going to be Baneling speed. It's also going to be the 1-1 upgrades that will be done by then for the Zerg. So it's going to make the cleanup quite a bit easier for Solar, I believe. Well, there is a moment though. He's probably going to have about 30 seconds where, yeah, the roly-poly upgrade is not going to be done, and 1-1 together with Stimpack and combat shields will be finished for Terran. Worst case scenario, Solar can always just evacuate this base. Like, he can always just send them all the way over to the bottom left-hand corner if he wants to. He's already setting up a huge run-by though, but the problem is no Baneling speed. Yeah, Baneling speed is just a little bit behind. This is the real vulnerability of this opener. And Oliveira is playing into it really wonderfully. The Queens have a lot of saved up energy. Oliveira knows that he's waiting right now, but is he gonna commit? He is gonna commit right now. This does feel a little bit early. Baneling speed is gonna finish up in about 10 seconds. I really think he should have waited, but okay, well, there's more than enough units here in the end anyways. One problem is that usually the reinforcing Terran units will then head on over to the bottom left, and then suddenly you don't have anywhere to evacuate to. 2-2 did get fired up, by the way, on both sides of the map immediately, so both players transitioning right away. Not a lot of creep anymore in this area, but Solar will try and reacquire that here very soon. Okay, that was a cleanup, and that's the most important part. Not the cleanest one, not the cleanest cleanup. You can see that he's lost quite a bit more than his opponent so far in this game, but at the very least he kept the base alive, and now the roly-poly upgrade is finished. Infestation Pit coming up as well for Solar, so he'll be able to transition towards a hive here very soon, and he'll probably use that to go straight into the 3-3 upgrades, and maybe Adrenal Glands. There's no Hydra Den or anything like that this time around. It's just going to be Lingbane together with Queens. He could even go into Ultras if he's feeling very fancy. Not really something I've seen Solar play all too often, but usually Lingbane is followed up with Ultras. Okay. Maybe he has been playing it for a bit. Nice moves, of course, here by Solar as well. Defending like a champ. Like, he's so good in that defensive posture, right? It's so easy to get over eager and chase the Terran player off creep, but well, now that he's chased back that army, it is time for him to go for a counterattack. There are already loads of Terran units though. Pre-split here. Massive Baneling Morphin actually. Oliveira does see at least one of them, and that is nice. This is gonna be, I think, a big attack with 2-2. That's an interesting push though. If he doesn't go now, Terran's gonna finish 2-2 as well. If he pushes within the next few seconds though, it's gonna hurt. These Marines are gonna be in a lot of trouble against 2-2 Banes. You should go Solar. I mean, he doesn't know, of course. He's got 10-15 seconds until those upgrades are finishing up for the Terran, and this is actually the perfect opportunity for him to go through this right now. Look at how much damage these Terran units are taking. Now 2-2 is completed. Yeah. Right after all of the Terran units are wiped off the map. Beautiful timing right here by Solar. He knew that he was on point with his upgrades. He didn't know how on point his opponent was, but he figured he had a chance. I mean, we see the armory being late all the time, of course, from Terran players, where they just simply don't get it at the correct moment. And well, he does fire up the +3 infantry attacks at the very least right away. That was an expensive set of losses there. If anything though, it is gonna buy Solar a lot of time. He does still decide to go for a Hydralisk Den. That is interesting. I think he may have just forgotten the Hydra Den and the Lurker Den, and he just, yeah, has prioritized. So he's actually going +1 missile. Not going +3 melee. I actually don't know if I like that. Anyways, the big picture here for Solar though, 87 workers, a massive army, good chunk of creep spread as well. He's got everything going for him at this point. Okay, a little bit of a push over here at the front as well from Oliveira, who does now have that 4th base up and running. With 4 base economy, of course, he can start thinking about making that transition towards the Ghost. There's the 5th command center started up as well. Liberators. Earlier than last game even, I believe. They did do quite a bit of work. I guess in this case he hasn't seen any Hydras or, well, anything that could counter any Liberators, so maybe not a bad call. Hydras are going to be starting up their ranged upgrade right now. And I wonder if we're going to be seeing a Lurker Den. Expansion coming up here at the 12 o'clock position. The creep is nice here at the bottom and in the middle of the map, but the right side, I guess, is a bit lackluster, mostly because Oliveira has been denying that for quite a while. This map is tricky, though, for Terrans. I would imagine that Gresvin was the map pick right there for Oliveira. Ooh, okay. Big Widow Mine drop. These can turn the tide of the game, yeah. I love these mid-game Widow Mine drops, man. Nobody really does them very often, but Oliveira is finding a lot of success. You don't really expect it anymore, you know? Like, you have a little bit more time to react against Marines and stuff, but mid-game Widow Mines definitely have potential. And this was after a siege tank opener as well, so not really something that Solar was predicting. This is a big attack. Very large push right here from Oliveira. He is playing against adrenal-glanced Zerglings, though, and this is a big mistake. He just lost about a dozen Marines there, maybe more. Okay, yeah, that was actually a very large error. At the same time, though, that's because, of course, there was aggression here on the left side of the map, too. This was a scary attack here and something that had a lot of potential, but Oliveira needed to cross all of his T's and dot all of his I's, and it turns out he did not cover all of it. Okay, I think that was an opportunity there for him, but sadly for him, it was missed. Of course, good opportunity for Solar as well. Classic 1-2 punch, distracting his opponent on the one end and then rolling the Banelings forward on the other end. 89 workers, once again. He's not afraid to redrone, right? A lot of Zergs at this point will not be all too happy to redrone, but kinda lovely. Okay. Yeah, what's problematic for Terrans on this map usually, and the reason why Zergs like to pick this map, is that it's difficult for them to secure another base. Like this expansion, doable, but very wide open, a lot of entrances. And the expansion in the top right, the 5th over here, is just really far away. So it's difficult for Terrans, like, for example, unlike Gresvin, it's very difficult for Terrans to actually create that split map scenario. Especially Gresvin and Neo-Humanity in the current map pool are very good for Terrans to create those split maps. Now, once again, he's inviting the Zerg off creep. Looks like this time around, at least some of the Zerg units decide to accept the invitation. A load of SCVs, though, going down right now on the other side of the map as Solar is relentless. GG is cold. And it's Solar who obtains the victory over the world champion of StarCraft 2 to 2-0.